All right, folks. Saturday night. I want to talk to you about Hawaii. My son's over in Hawaii right now. He's visiting with some friends. And, Hawaii's a beautiful place, but it had quite a rocky and turbulent beginning. As we all know, it's a volcanic island. And all the islands there are basically the tops of volcanoes that have cooled down as they've reached the surface of the ocean. There's some talk about a mega tsunami from what's called the Hil-leena slump. The Hil-leena slump is basically a landmass on the edge of the volcanic region of the island that could give way. And if that falls into the ocean, or any part of it does, it's going to displace a massive amount of water. Now, hear me on this, folks. There are discussions and talk and hype and hyperbole that state that the western part of the United States is going to go underwater if this gives way. I will tell you what I know for a fact, and that is that the U.S. government and other governments have tremendous technology that can induce earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis, hurricanes, typhoons. They can move the jet stream around. This is widely known and is a documented fact. This is a very serious problem, and it really is a function of how serious they want to make it. The Hil-leena slump, according to seismic experts, they claim that somewhere around 100,000 years ago, it gave way and created a massive tsunami that literally flooded all the islands. Now, I don't know about whether that's true or not because no one was around back then. But I will tell you that any type of tsunami is dangerous. And I will tell you the ones that need to worry about this the most, and that is the people that are in direct proximity to the line of the approach of this tsunami. That would be most of the western coast of the United States, California specifically, Oregon and Washington, even Mexico, Catalina Island, and of course the Hawaiian Islands. But just how serious of a threat is this, and how much potential do we have for a cataclysmic event? Well, there is always potential for a cataclysmic event. And the question remains is, in light of the potential for this cataclysmic event, what do we do? Well, I personally do not believe that we're going to be facing the submergence of the western half of the United States underwater by some 1,000-foot mega tsunami. Because from all estimations that I can see, what's happening is the pressure is being let off gradually in Hawaii, and although the southern portion of the island has moved several feet after the last earthquake, it's certainly been there for a very long time, and the island's not going anywhere, folks. And half of it's not going to fall into the ocean. Now, there are several thousand cubic miles of solid landmass under the water and above the water that comprise this so-called Hil-leena slump. It's a very large amount of land. So if the entire thing did give way, we could theoretically have a major problem on our hands. But the likelihood of that happening is almost slim to none, unless, of course, there's some interference or manipulation from outside sources. Tesla bragged how he could split the earth back at the turn of the century. Something tells me that he wasn't kidding, folks. He knew a lot of things back then that we have now developed and perfected. I don't know how many of you follow what's going on with CERN or these hadron colliders or these particle accelerators, but ladies and gentlemen, there are scientists that are literally playing with fire when it comes to physics and their experiments. But I do know this, they do have the technology to cause earthquakes, and I do know they have the technology to modify the weather. They have these massive antenna farms, they have massive Tesla installations. They have the technology, folks. So they can do very dastardly things. I wanted to bring up the other thing that really concerns me, because there are several, and I can't confirm how many, but they're called FEMA barges. Those are headed to Hawaii, ladies and gentlemen. And they're basically what FEMA would like to call floating hotels. I like to call them floating prisons. Each one of these can house about 2,000 people. And if you look on the internet at FEMA barges, you could see they're very creepy looking, and they look like floating prisons. I could tell you that you do not want to go to a FEMA camp. You do not want to go to any FEMA facility in the event of a disaster. You want to remain as free from entanglement with that agency as humanly possible. We know for a fact that there are a lot of people after the recent events in Texas and the hurricane that are still unaccounted for that went to FEMA facilities for assistance. I'm in the insurance business, folks, and I know one thing. And I know when one of my clients has a car accident and they need to get the car fixed and they're having a hard time getting the insurance company to cooperate with them, they're calling me because I'm their agent. And they want me to say, hey, Joe, where's my money? And I don't blame them because they're entitled to it. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people missing that were expecting to flood the call centers of these FEMA facilities and the insurance companies that didn't end up coming through and claiming their damages or seeking assistance. It is by one estimation that almost 17,000 people were brought onto these FEMA barges off the Gulf Coast after that last event, that last major weather event. Now, I don't know what happened to those people, and to be honest with you, there's no actual coverage in the media about these FEMA barges and 17,000 people that were displaced and where they are. But I will tell you this, there are a lot of people missing. And you don't want to go to a FEMA barge. You don't want to go to a FEMA camp. You don't want FEMA anything. You don't want to be relocated, folks. That's a fact. You don't want to have anything to do with the government that wants to try to help you in a disaster. You want to take care of yourself and your neighbors. The purpose of this little video tonight is to really try to put some things into perspective. And we've got a lot of things to worry about. And every day we wake up on this earth, depending upon where you live, there are hazards. There are geological hazards that are built into the landscape. You're in the Midwest, it could be tornadoes. It could be sub-zero temperatures with extreme wind chill if you're in the northern part of the country. In the South, it could be the heat combined with the humidity. It could be lightning strikes. In the West Coast, it could be earthquakes. And anywhere in the country, it could be somebody else, murder, acts of violence, or even a terrorist attack, nuclear attack, an EMP detonation that takes the power grid down. Look, they're all things that we can face, but we can't go through life thinking every day the end of the world is coming, because it's simply not going to happen. What is going to happen, and there's no doubt in my mind about this, is that we are incrementally being marched off to tyranny. And this tyranny comes in many shapes and sizes and many forms, but most of this tyranny is brought upon us by the politics and power of fear. So you need to really try to be balanced, and you need to try to not come off the rails. and assess the threats and assess the situation, and don't overreact. But at the same time, don't act like nothing's going to happen. Listen, you cannot live in Southern California, which is a desert by its very nature, without an adequate supply of water. This is earthquake country. And anybody in their right mind that lives here that doesn't have at least a month or two supply of water on hand is really, in my opinion, a fool and borders on what I would like to call as an insane person. Because you can't live without water, ladies and gentlemen. And you can't live without water in a place that is going to be ravaged by an earthquake someday. That's an inevitability. Our water supply is based on a system, a delivery system, and an infrastructure that is archaic in some areas, dilapidated in others, and is wholly inadequate to deal with a major earthquake. And it's evidently clear by all the admissions of the public officials and the experts that we would be up to 6 months without water in Southern California in the event of a major earthquake. These barges that are on their way to Hawaii, we don't know why they're heading there. They're not telling us why, but we know that this time they're not going to be very close to the shore. They're going to be 10 miles out. We don't know what they're expecting over there, but they do know that there's a problem in Hawaii with that volcano. They won't tell us what's going on. But we don't need to know what's going on. All we really need to know is that you need to get out of the way of the lava, and you need to not go to one of these FEMA facilities. Now, these barges are basically floating prisons, like I said. It is also possible that they're hyping this up to see just how gullible the people are, to see if they'll go along with edicts that may come down the line, and see if people will follow. It could be a dry run. Could be a real event. I don't know. I do know that there's a flotilla of FEMA barges heading to Hawaii right now. Video tonight is because I believe people in Hawaii are going to be forced to leave their homes. And this may be just the beginning of a new wave of government intrusion into our lives. We all know that problem, reaction, solution is the oldest trick in the book. It's been around forever. I'll tell you right now that what we must do is we must look out for our neighbors and look out for each other, and do not rely on the government for anything. We must make our own preparations to defend our neighborhoods and to make provision for, in the event that there's an interruption in supplies, if there's an interruption in electricity, there's an interruption in water. I don't care where you live, this can happen to you. We don't know if the Hilina slump is going to fall off the side of that volcano and break off at the bottom of the ocean and create a 1,000-foot tsunami, or if it's going to cause a 500-foot tsunami, or if it's going to cause a 100-foot tsunami, or if it's going to cause a 10-foot tsunami. But I will tell you that part of that is going to break off, and it is going to fall into the ocean. Could be underwater, could be above water. We don't know. But it's going to happen. And there will be an effect. And these cities on the west coast of California, they're going to feel it. Why no one's talking about this? Well, how do you relocate 10 million people?